Welcome to a Telltale Books video. In this video, I'm going to finally get back to my series of everything I can get my hands on by Larry Niven in order of publication. And this is only going to be number 2. I've done other Larry Niven videos before, like Ringworld. We've already talked about that. But in this series, I'm going back to the very beginning of Niven's career. And I've already done his first published short story called The Coldest Place. This video is about his second work, which is called World of Ptavvs. I think that's how you pronounce it. Ptavvs. It's a made-up word for an alien language. Pronounce it however you want. I'm going to call it Ptavvs. Silent P. And so it's interesting that Larry Niven went from a very short story, almost short enough to be flash fiction, and one which had very little to it. It was like I say, it was an extremely short story. There wasn't much meat to it. It wasn't much of a story. It was kind of interesting for what it was, but just it wasn't much. Extremely short. From that, he went to World of Ptavvs, which it's a novella actually, but in its appearance in Worlds of Tomorrow this is March 1965, edited by Frederik Pohl. Frederik Pohl, in his introduction, calls this a novel, a full novel, which it was not in this appearance. It was fairly long, but it was not really a novel-length work. But in the table of contents, they call it a complete novel. Now, World of Ptavvs later was expanded to become a full novel and was published by Ballantine Books, becoming Larry Niven's first novel. It's pretty impressive. Second work out of the gate at a time in the genre when most authors got their start writing a whole bunch of short stories before they stepped up to writing novels. He wrote a novel. Now, the truly novel length of World of Ptavvs, published as a book, was not published until 1966, I believe. So a year later. And the other interesting thing about Frederik Pohl, in his editorial, he talks about Larry Niven. He starts out his editorial saying, Larry Niven, who is rapidly becoming one of our favorite writers. I find this interesting that he only published one story before this one, and this is his second story, and Frederik Pohl is saying he's rapidly becoming one of their favorite writers. Based on what? 2 stories? That seems a weird thing to be saying at this time. And he says he seems to know, he seems to write with his brain in series. When you read a Larry Niven story, you get the feeling that there is a certain amount of intellection going on, that he not only knows what he wants his characters to do and how you are supposed to feel about them, but what the world is like around them, and even what the universe is like that brought them to birth. And I would agree with that assessment, even though it's only based on a short story and a novella. Me having read a lot of other Larry Niven works, I think I agree with that statement. So the cover illustration is for World of Ptavvs and is credited to Schelling. I believe his name is George Schelling. A name that I've seen in magazines, but otherwise I'm not familiar with the illustrator. It's a pretty nice illustration, and it's pretty impressive that Larry Niven got the cover story with his second work. The interior illustrations, by the way, are also very interesting, done by Jack Gowan, something like that. This is one of them. and mostly just illustrations of the different alien creatures that are described in this story, which Niven had a really great talent with that. His aliens are fascinating. They're very different from anything that, at least at that time, 1965, that I think people have really encountered in science fiction. They are a little more thought through as far as maybe being practical, and yet they're still very weird. They're the kind of aliens that I think would have been great for an artist like Wayne Barlow to have illustrated. Wayne Barlow is a noted science fiction fantasy illustrator who, at the beginning of his career, distinguished himself as someone who did excellent realizations of alien life forms. And he did a whole book of his own work called Expedition, which had all kinds of aliens in it. Great book. Anyway, the other interesting thing about this is that this version of World of Ptavvs, the short version, the novella version, is only available in this issue of Worlds of Tomorrow, the March 1965 issue. I happen to have not a perfect copy, but a really nice copy of it, and that's what I've read it in. I have seen this issue as a PDF online, so if you search out there, you may come across the PDF for free, though I've noticed some of those are disappearing, probably copyright issues. So, got to be kind of watchful of that. And then, of course, the novel length World of Ptavvs that was published a couple years later. I'm going to talk about that separately in a video kind of comparing the two when I get to it, but I'm going to get to it in order. First, I'm going to read some other short stories that were published before the novel came out. And then I'll read the novel and do a video where I'll come back and compare the novel with this novella. And because my memory isn't perfect, I want to push through a bunch of Larry Niven to get there fairly quickly. So I would say sometime next spring, I should be talking about the novel length version of World of Ptavvs. Anyway, the novella is what I'm talking about. This is what I've read. I haven't ever read the novel of World of Ptavvs. I've read a lot of Larry Niven, but I've never read that one. So I am talking about the novella. And I really don't know what differences I'll find when I read the novel. I'm expecting it's just going to be an expanded version of the novella. I don't know that there will be any significant differences in detail or plot or characters. I won't know that till I get there. Anyway, to the story. World of Ptavvs starts out with a character. Memory. Named Gazano. Kzanol. You realize very quickly that we're talking about an alien creature here. And I do want to read, because I think a taste of Niven's writing is in order here. I think it starts out really good. The moment was so short that it could not be measured. I like that line. Yet it was far too long. It seemed that every mind in the universe, every mind that had ever been or that would ever be, was screaming in its deepest emotions at him. Then it was over. The stars had changed again. That's as far as I'll go. Really good writing. Niven is a good writer. It's an exciting story. And you right away get this Gazano. He comes out of hyperspace, hyperdrive, heading towards a planet where he expects he'll be able to enslave the whole population, make slaves out of them. Okay, the Gazano race does this. They go around to other solar systems and they enslave the races as slaves that they come across. Okay, so Gazano has identified this planet that he thinks is going to be a gold mine for him of slaves to take advantage of. And so he's headed there. He comes out of hyperspace for whatever reason at quite a distance from the planet, but then something goes wrong with his drive and he has to eject his drive and it blows up behind him. Okay, and the ships of this alien race are designed this way because they have this problem with these drives where sometimes they do blow up, overload and blow up. And so they're actually kind of strung behind the main ship. So that it's really easy for them to just jettison it, cut the cords and shoot it off. So now he's on just lower power and he's got a long way to go to get to the planet. It's going to take a long time to get there. But they have time stasis fields. He can set the ship on course for the planet, put himself in a time stasis field so that he doesn't age during the 100 years it's going to get there. He is concerned that somebody else is going to beat him to the planet now, but there's nothing he can do about it. So he sets off on his journey in his time stasis field. But another reality, in order to try and speed things up for him, is he doesn't have the ability to brake when he gets there. So he sets his ship to just go ahead and crash. He knows the planet somewhat. He knows he's on a course to plunge it into the ocean, so it won't be so bad. And he does so. Okay, now we cut to present day Earth. Or not present day, the Earth in somewhere in the future. Mankind has gone out across the solar system, has gone to certain stars, have come across a race of aliens called the Bandersnatchy. So we're a starfaring civilization already. On Earth, scientists have identified certain people who have telepathic abilities and found that they can actually communicate with dolphins and that dolphins are actually intelligent. It's an interesting little side fact, but it really plays an extremely minor role. The dolphins play an extremely minor role in the story. Their only purpose is that they go down in the ocean and they find what looks like a statue and they bring it up. And this one guy who is able to communicate with them, he does this. Now, telepathic communication involves kind of a merging of minds. And so when he does this, some of the mind and personality and memories of the dolphin get left behind in him. But because they're both earth creatures, it's no big deal. So they bring the statue up and they find out that it's actually somebody in a time stasis field. And there's a scientist on Earth that has just perfected time stasis fields. And so he figures out how they can utilize the telepath, how they can minimize the time stasis field enough that they can utilize the telepath to go in and get into this alien's mind. But now, mind you, no pun intended, this alien is part of a race that is extremely powerful telepaths. So what happens when they do this is the alien's entire mind takes over the Earth guy. So now his personality is completely pushed down. He thinks he's the alien. Okay. And he realizes something funky has gone on, but he's still thinking he's that alien. Well, in the meantime, the actual alien wakes up, and he's the real alien. Both of them have a desire to go and recover a suit that the ship automatically jettisoned out at Neptune, which will allow them to expand their mind powers enough to be able to enslave the whole world on Earth. Now, mind you, this alien actually, it turns out, actually crashed on Earth like millions of years ago. and has been sitting at the bottom of the ocean in a time stasis field all that time. So a lot of things have changed in the meantime. The alien's entire race is history. Their slaves rose up and killed them all. But we don't find that till later. That's a little bit of a spoiler, sorry, but it's not a big one. So here's this. That's the basic setup of the story. Is the aliens trying to get to Neptune to recover this suit he left there to be able to enslave everybody on Earth. The Earthmen figure this out by talking to the alien slash human. They're able to talk to him because he is still a human being and still knows how to talk English. And they find out this is what's going on. So the Earthmen race out there to Neptune. And I think that's what this scene is all about, is the drama at Neptune between the Earthmen and this alien. So it's not a story with any message. This is just science fiction adventure, and it's a really good science fiction adventure. The science, the knowledge about the solar system and Neptune and the outer planets and such is accurate for 1965, and it's close enough that you can read it today and not be bothered much by. Yeah, I think the average reader is not going to catch much of the inconsistencies with what we know today. So it's an exciting story. It's a good story. I wouldn't give it a top tail, but I would say it's worth reading. Now, it's kind of your decision if it's worth tracking down this old issue of Worlds of Tomorrow, which is the only place you're ever going to read the novella length version. It would be a whole lot easier. Just go on Kindle and get World of Ptavvs ebook and read it. It'll be the expanded version. I guess that's what I would recommend doing today. I read this one separately because I want to be absolutely complete, and I want to compare what the differences are for my own personal interest. For all the other Larry Niven readers out there, there's probably no point in doing that. I'm just weird that way. Now let me do it for you, and then you go get the novel World of Ptavvs and enjoy it. And I do believe it'll be an enjoyable novel, just as much as I enjoyed the novella version of it. So that's number 2 for Larry Niven. I gotta consult my scrolls and refresh my memory. The next one was published only 1 month later, but in Galaxy magazine, which Worlds of Tomorrow, Galaxy, If were all published by the same company, and in 65, I believe they were all edited by Frederick Bull. So the next one, published a month later in April of 1965 issue of Galaxy magazine, is Wrong Way Street. That'll be number 3. And it's part of a series that is just kind of loosely described as time travel parallel universe. There's only 3 stories. There's Wrong Way Street, there's For a Foggy Night, and there's All the Myriad Ways. They apparently were never collected together as a novel. Don't know if they were put in a collection by themselves, not that I'm aware of. But it'll be the Wrong Way Street will be the first in a very short series. It's just a short story. First in a short series of related short stories that Larry Niven wrote. That's what I'll get to very soon, because like I say, I want to blaze through. I'm at number 2. The novel of World of Ptavvs is number 10 in my bibliography. So I got, 7 stories to shoot through really fast so I can get to the novel. And I do I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the novel enough. I enjoyed the novella enough that I really do want to get to the novel soon, like by next spring. So I got a bunch of them to shoot through, but I think they're all fairly short. Wrong Way Street is just a short story, so that'll be an easy one to get through. Have you read World of Ptavvs? Leave your comments, especially if you've read both of them and can, don't spoil anything, but if there's some little things you can state of the differences between the novel and novella, I'd be interested to hear it without spoiling anything major about it, if there is anything major. Leave them in the comments on the video and leave anything else you want to say about Larry Niven or World of Ptavvs. And I will be back as soon as I can with Wrong Way Street. I hope you'll join me for that and all the rest of the Larry Niven and all the other authors that I've been reading and enjoying lately. I'm loving doing this. I hope you're enjoying watching these. And so I'll be here with those.